So, you think you're untouchable?
Word life. This is basic thugonomics. This is basic thugonomics. Word life. I'm untouchable, but I'm forcing you to feel me. Word life. This is basic thugonomics.
Hello, friends. Mike O'Sullivan here for Week 3 of Big League Banter. We got a big show coming up for you today, so how you doing, partners?
We're doing great here. Thanks, Mike, for the introduction. Mark, how you doing today? You're laughing a little bit over there.
Oh, that was a good Jim Nance impersonation.
That was very good.
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
Doing great. Greg?
Great. Another great day to Banter. I must say, that was as spot on Nance as I've ever heard.
Thank you.
Anyway, guys, so we have a great show coming up for you today. Mark, what are we talking about first, though? Let's cut the shit.
All right. First off, we're going to be talking about playoffs as it just passed this weekend, and we'll touch on the locals as we normally do first, starting with the Giants and how their season, unfortunately, was ended Sunday night against the Packers in a one-sided second-half victory. What did you guys take away from this game, especially from the defensive standpoint, since the Giants had a great defense all year and Aaron Rodgers just tore them apart in the second half?
I think the absence of DRC was just glaring in the second half. I think they broke down a little bit. Their heart really got pulled on that Hail Mary, but I think that was a great halftime adjustment. That's what great teams do. I don't know if it was Mike McCarthy. But really good teams make adjustments, and it wasn't a brutally hard adjustment to have to figure out. They're down to Trevin Wade and Leon Hall on the inside. They've underachieved all year. We're in their fourth and fifth string. Randall Cobb in the slot, and he looked healthy, and they attacked the Giants' middle of the field. The Giants' pass rush really died out. They neutralized the Giants' pass rush. Ball was coming out quick, and I think it was a great adjustment by the Packers. I thought Eli threw the ball really good to start off the game, but costly drops. And if you're a Giants fan, you're going to point to that first half and say we had a chance to take control of this game.
I thought the Giants I think they kind of actually lost this game early on. They had more chances to score early on than they should have. They only had they kept driving downfield, but they would have to settle for a field goal attempt. And Eli, like Greg said, Eli was throwing the ball well, but Odell had that first drop, and then I think after that first drop, maybe things started getting in his head, and when he was like, "Oh man, I better catch these, unless people are gonna just be talking about my week off or my day off in Miami, And I just think that whole thing got in his head where he was worried about that. And then eventually, Rodgers is going to break out during the game at some point. They held him down for a little bit, and then he just broke out. And the problem is with Rodgers is that they were doing a good job of containing him, not letting him break outside a lot. But the problem with that is he's such a great pocket passer that it doesn't matter. If you're not actually sacking him, it really doesn't matter. If you look at the final score, you would say that the defense had a terrible day, giving up 38 points. But I think for most of this, the defense was fine. Rodgers is going to score. The story has been all season for the Giants. It was the offense just not doing enough when they needed it, and the costly drops hurt them.
Yeah, as you alluded to, it was the score didn't really dictate of what the actual game was, because you had the Hail Mary pass. That's a fluky play. And in the fourth quarter, I think when Eli, that crazy fumble where Paul Perkins didn't pick the ball up and Clay Matthews did everything there. But I think the Giants, you can't say they didn't come to play, because they obviously did. But a couple players here, like obviously Beckham, Shepard, both had key drops in the first couple drives. But once again, Eli came to play as he usually does in the playoffs. He was firing the ball out quickly. He looked as good as he did all year in that first half. And even the defense, they were playing a complete game for maybe 20, 25 minutes in the first half, but that Hail Mary really lifted the Packers' spirits coming out of the locker room for the second half. But Paul, what did you take away from the game?
In the first quarter, I really thought the Green Bay Packers were in a lot of trouble. I thought the Giants had the tempo of the game. They drove down the field, but those two field goals were very huge. They have to turn one of those into a touchdown. You have the drops by Shepard, Beckham that go on. And, Rodgers is going to figure out a lot of teams. And no matter how good your defense is, and we saw that Rodgers, he is a god to me of the quarterback position. I mean, he can do everything that you need a quarterback to do.
It's crazy how amazing he is outside the pocket, but even inside. He's able to extend plays for 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds when the ball should be out of his hands and maybe thrown out of bounds at that point. But I have never seen a quarterback that has the craft that he does, where he's able to make a throw from sideline to sideline with pinpoint accuracy. It's amazing watching him play.
That's the thing. Like, there's quarterbacks, like especially today with more mobile quarterbacks, you'll see them escape the pocket. But Rodgers throws dimes still when he does it. Like, he throws like laser. He's throwing up. It's not even just he's out of the pocket. Sometimes he's throwing off 1 foot and he's like diming it right to.
Even on the Devontae Adams touchdown towards the end zone, there was just inches of separation between him and the defender, and Rodgers was able to put it right in his hands, right in his gut for him to catch it. Perfect pass.
And, he toyed with the defensive lineman on that play. Catch me if you can. Got out of the pocket on 1 foot, one move. Rifles it. If you give him an inch of separation, he's going to find his guy.
When you have him forced out, so many plays, it looks like as you push him towards the sideline, this is going to be a throwaway. You're pushing him all up to the sideline. It just takes one guy to get open on his side of the field, and he just turns and he can flick it 40 yards. Like, nobody's out of the play for him, even as you're pushing him out. He's just staring, waiting, and he just has a great arm. Off his back foot can just whip it. He did it a couple times just today. There's really no defending him. You can't fool him anymore. He's mobile. He's tough. We all know he's tough. He plays with a lot of injuries. I don't know. I think this is going to be tough sledding for everybody else who has to face him going forward.
Well, it's cliche to say, but the best way to defend him is to keep him off the field, which the Giants did. Yeah. The offense couldn't stay on the field long enough to keep him off.
Yeah, and I credit that to having no rushing game. Like what Greg said would be a big point for the emphasis for the Giants. And I said early in the game that the way that they were throwing the ball on them, I would have abandoned the run early because they weren't doing much with it with Paul Perkins, Rashad Jennings.
And then they have Bobby Rainey in there. Yeah. Not to mention the special teams play, but the 4th down run, I think.
The 3rd and 1.
3rd and 1, that's correct.
And that's what led to the Hail Mary.
Yeah.
I credit McAdoo for staying with the run because we've all criticized them. They haven't run it enough. So this time he said, fine, almost all first downs, I'm running it. I think I would have liked to see him go away from it earlier. But, I don't have a problem with him trying to stay with the run. I didn't think he mixed it in well. It just seemed like first down, the Giants are running it, and there wasn't much there. But I don't know. I don't think with the way the game played out, even with missed opportunities, I don't know if the Giants were gonna win this game. I'd have to wonder if I was a Giants fan. There was just opportunities, but you don't beat Hall of Fame quarterbacks with missed opportunities.
You have to capitalize on every single thing that gets handed to you, and a couple key plays stick out in my mind. Obviously, the Beckham drop, wide open the end zone. He's the top 3 wide receiver. He's got to make that play. The Bobby Rainey stepping out of bounds to the 3 on the kickoff. Those were 2 key momentum plays. But what do you guys think was there a number 1 clear-cut turning point in this game?
I think it turned. I think it did turn on the Hail Mary.
I think
you can't say you pull 7. Even if the final score, you pull 7 points off the board, and the game looked like it could have been only a couple breaks away. It's still now you look down 2-point conversion, 8-point drives. If you take that 7 points off the board, it's big. And if you take that off, and the Giants had gotten points right before the half, I think it's a different game. I still think things would not have got. They weren't going the Giants' way, but I think that definitely was a gut punch for the Giants.
I still can't see how that was converted into a touchdown.
Well, and
bad ball skills.
I think he throws a hard to defend Hail Mary. He gets it high. He gets it good. He gets it with good arc, and it's up there, and guys just panic.
Cobb also he pushed off a little bit. I mean,
a little, but
it's not enough.
On a lot of those plays, if you go back and look, there's defensive guys are just mugging guys in the end zone. They're just pulling them down. You really can't call this because you're going to decide a game if you throw a flag on them.
And you can't let anyone get behind you on that play.
No, you should have them all pushed in front.
The Giants had a chance to get back in the game when they got the stop on the 4th and 1, and then Eli throws a touchdown to DeForest King right away.
Mm-hmm.
So that was their chance to get back in the game. But then obviously Rodgers just went off and not to call out anybody specifically on the defense, but I just thought I didn't hear Olivier Vernon's name once this game, and I think obviously to have some success against Rodgers, you need some sort of a pass rush they were already down JPP. I just thought you're paying Vernon the big money. This would be a game where you hope to see him do something.
And they got a deceptive 4 sacks in the game.
Coverage sacks.
Coverage sacks. I mean, Rodgers had at least an average of 6 seconds to throw the ball, and that's way too much time to give him.
God, we forgot to brought it up last time. Was Jason Pierre-Paul's absence going to be a big difference? Was it a big difference? You have to say it was.
It played. I don't know how much of a difference it was because in the second half they completely controlled the game, but his impact would have been a positive for the Giants, I would think.
I think in these kind of games against a great quarterback, if you have individual pass rushers who can get there without the blitz. I mean, that's invaluable. I mean, you can beat teams if you have individual guys and you can cover rush 3-4, but you know those guys are going to get there. They had good fill-ins, but those guys weren't getting there yesterday.
Exactly, and as great as the Giants' corners are, they can't cover guys for 6 or 7 seconds. Nobody can, so that's where you need the pass rush.
Even with this loss, as a Giants fan, you got to be happy with the team that you have from last year to now. I mean,
coming in August if you were a Giants fan and somebody told you you're going to be 11-5 this year and play in the playoffs, I would sign up for that right away.
I mean, but they have a lot of pieces that are going to be there for the long haul.
Jenkins, DRC.
But the one question is, Eli's getting up there. He's almost 37.
We heard it from Jerry Reese.
Is it time to start sniffing around for that quarterback to take over eventually?
Have you guys ever heard that either? A GM comes out and he really said it. He goes, he's on the back 9. He's in decline. We're going to look now. It's much more subtle than that.
They already did this a few years ago, and they drafted Ryan Nassib, but he hasn't panned out at all. Like they say he doesn't even play well in practice. So I think they've even been looking at this for a few years now, and they're definitely going to have to do something moving forward because Eli he is an Iron Man. He doesn't miss any starts, but all of your age it happens to everyone. Your age is going to catch up to you eventually.
And you saw with Peyton.
Yeah,
he elite one year, the next year couldn't hit.
I think you saw watching too. Eli didn't have the same zip he's always had. His passes weren't crisp this year. He was inaccurate.
I just thought he looked so panicky in the pocket a lot of like he always seemed like he has an awkward stance, kind of like Peyton would always jump around. Like Eli kind of does that, but he just looked like he was so jittery, like trying to get the ball out a lot of the time.
I think the offensive line not being as good as it should. Like you need to have a really good line for Eli Manning because he can't maneuver well enough in the pocket, and if you take him off his spot, he's not going to deliver a very good pass.
I think maybe our expectations are we got to turn him down a little bit because we're used to Eli making the big play, making pinpoint passes, but I think the focal point of this Giants team coming up is definitely the defense.
I agree. I think it doesn't mean you can't have 3 or 4 more winning years with Eli. They have the defense now. You need to solidify your line, and you look like you have a good young running back. The Giants have to become what you do with an older quarterback. Play defense, run the ball, control the game. You can't ask it all of Eli anymore. It's not a hard concept.
Sounds like a 2015 recipe for Denver Broncos.
That's what you have to do with your quarterback just doesn't have it.
I think an overlooked factor in this is that Ben McAdoo was the one calling the plays this year, and I thought personally he had a very underwhelming year calling plays. And I think I personally don't like head coaches getting involved with play calling. I'd rather them just leave that to coordinators. And I've heard a lot of Giants people as well say that they didn't think he did as good of a job as he could have done. So with Eli getting up there in age, they're going to have to start relying on the running game a little more. So I don't know, maybe they'll have to switch something up.
I think here's an interesting question before we look at any other games. Yes or no? Will the Giants have taken a quarterback in rounds 1 or 2 in this year's draft?
It's hard to think about. It really depends on how they believe in Ryan Nassib, because
I don't like him.
But the time Eli retires, I don't think he's going to be on the team. So I look at this draft. There's a lot of project quarterbacks in this draft. So
this more the question, Paul. What do you think here? Dancing around.
No, I'm just giving my insight to it. I think they could. I say yes, but it won't be first or second round.
I'm going to agree with Paul. That, like he said, there's a lot of project quarterbacks coming out, but they have other needs that they have to fulfill. I mean, you still have Eli Manning back there, no matter which way you look at it, no matter how old he is, but you definitely have to solidify that line, and if you can't get a top-notch free agent tight end, I would certainly look for it in the first 2 rounds of the draft.
They'll draft a quarterback later on because they think they're a win-now team, and they probably are. When you do that, you just try to add a couple of final pieces to put you over the top. I don't think they would take a quarterback early on when they could take someone who could contribute right now. so they would take one later.
Yeah, I just don't think it's deep enough where they would. But I think they would definitely consider it. One has to wonder, could we see Geno Smith staying close by? Maybe the Giants like him as a project backup?
I do not see that.
It's interesting.
Geno's not staying in New York, I'll tell you that.
I mean, I don't know. That's not a bad backup spot for him to land if he has to be.
I think he's going to get a starting job, to be honest.
Sure, just let him quarterback the Jets. What do you have to lose?
Who?
The Jets.
Fitzpatrick.
I'm almost starting to lean back to that just because there's just not a lot of options.
There's not a lot of options. Like, what veteran do you want out there?
Just let Hack sit again.
Yeah, let's waste a second round pick on a quarterback and not even let him
Like a disaster already.
Yeah.
So
it's really hard to foresee what the Jets are going to do at that position.
Just stop worrying about perceptions. Let's just do what you think you got best.
All right, so we'll switch from one bad topic, being the Jets, to another one. Being
well, thanks.
Hey, who wants to talk about them? Come on.
I think about them. I don't like to talk about them.
All right, so you think about them before you go to bed, don't you?
I do.
Yeah. Okay, so once again, here we go, talking about Odell Beckham and his antics. This guy can't keep his name out of the headlines. Of course, going to that trip to Miami a week ago before the game. It's nonsense, but before the game, taking pictures with his shirt off, never played in a game under 32 degrees. Him and Victor Cruz acting like fools, if you ask me.
Tough guys at the group.
Yeah, and guess who's the player that's honestly had his worst game this year outside the Minnesota game and
second
had
career worst.
Huge drops in this game that were cleared momentum shifts towards the opposition.
Bend it like Beckham.
No, exactly.
Okay, here's a question. How can you like Odell Beckham anywhere off the field right now? Have you ever seen this from a player?
As you guys know, I am Beckham's biggest supporter. I'm probably his biggest fan at this table right now, but it's starting to get hard to root for him. He's got to grow up.
Well, I heard this stat, which to me says a lot. He's a great player, but the only 2 games in his career where he's had multiple drops were this game and the game where he played against Josh Norman when they were going back and forth. That tells me when you get in his head, he'll start dropping the ball.
But it's not just this game. He had 9 drops this year, and that's a lot. If you want to call yourself the best, you can't have 9 drops.
And I kind of said this before, but I think after that first drop, but he said, like, early in the week, he said the Miami thing wasn't going to have any effect, and I still don't know if it did. But I think after that first drop, I think he got it in his head where he was like, oh, no, I better catch the next one unless people are going to start talking. And then he's thinking too much, and all of a sudden he's dropped a couple.
You know what bothers me too? You see him go up for so many one-handed catches where he could go for 2 hands, all because of that one play.
I'm going to say, Paul, that is the worst thing that happened in his career. The best and worst thing was that one-handed catch against Dallas.
And I've heard it a lot on the radio. He's had too much success before he even has won anything.
Yeah, had real success. This is his first time in the playoffs, and he choked.
I've never seen a guy that just seems to command everything off the field like him. He commands everyone else. I think people gravitate to him. He's got celebrities. He's got top rappers. It's an endless supply of just publicity for him that he just eats up. And I mean, he literally goes or he acts like a grown woman, or he acts like a 16-year-old kid that's just living off of this. I mean, he's 23. What is he? Probably 23, 24.
23.
I mean, come on, Odell. I mean, now, can you imagine? I think how great a receiver he is, and I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to criticize how much effort he puts in, how much time, because that's not my place. Because we don't know that. But he can't put in as much time as could possibly be. Imagine if he was a guy who just ate up film. He spent all these trips and all this time eating up film, studying crisper routes.
Well,
can you imagine what kind of player he would be?
It's hard to say that because he's the biggest sports star probably in the NFL. I mean. Again, he's 23. He's really got to mature.
He's got to choose. What does he enjoy more, preparation or publicity?
Yeah, because we've seen that he has all the talent, the skills to probably be the best receiver in the league. Last year there was arguments. This year there was arguments, but he's got to do some soul searching on and off the field. Because even his on-field antics, they're a distraction to the team.
I'm not saying he still can't be fun, Odell, but I think he can still have just as much fun. He can still be in the media, but he can easily do it half as much and still be doing it more than anybody else.
Because we can round off a half a dozen things that happened this year, which probably majority of the NFL, you're not going to hear anything about that. Like from the trip to Miami, punching your head punching your fist through the wall in Green Bay, and the whole Josh Norman situation, kissing the net for weeks at a time.
A few weeks ago, wasn't he like scream? He was like doing something like after the game, like yelling or something, growling to himself.
After they lost to Philly.
Yeah,
you can understand you care, but just be the best. Don't talk. Don't have the gift of gab. You know what I'm saying?
You know what's so? I think in this whole thing, I would be most disappointed in Victor Cruz. Like, I think he should be the veteran, like, leader, and like, he's not that old himself, but he's a veteran of that group, and he's down there with them, and he's doing the whole shirtless thing before the game. I would think he would, if anyone should be like a mentor, like a veteran kind of mentor to Odell, it should be him, but it seems like he's taking part in this.
I think he's honestly a low-key star, though. People like Victor Cruz.
Yeah,
like
he was the guy a couple years
ago.
He
was so popular a couple years
ago. He still is. I mean,
a
lot of the big names, like LeBron still likes him. He hangs out with them. So I think he's a star in himself, too. I don't like the excuses, though, for Odell. He's never had a game like this in his entire career.
A lot of people defend him and say it's not his fault.
And what they say the Miami trip wasn't his fault. Then what is it? This Green Bay secondary was torn up by so many Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, Cameron Meredith. Like, this is Odell Beckham Jr., and he's a worldwide talent. And for him to have that game, what is it? What happened in that game?
I have to question his mental makeup. I have to question his mental game right now. He hasn't responded well when you get to him mentally. But
what got to him mentally? The media going off on him about going to Miami?
Yeah.
All right, let's say even in the loss, he had 8 catches, 150 yards, and a touchdown. We're not even talking about this Miami trip. It's not. It's not a discussion.
I expected him to show up.
So did I.
I really think it was that first drop. I think if he catches that first ball, he's fine. But I think once he dropped that first ball, he's like, I better get that.
I don't think it was a problem going in, but I think he dropped a pass, just dropped one, and immediately his head, oh gosh, they're going to crucify me if I don't live up now. That's one drop, and that was in his head immediately, and it was all over.
He's had so many great games, and he's had 9 drops in the regular seasons. He's bounced back from plenty of those. So
but he's never had probably this much criticism.
He's never had multiple drops.
It's the magnitude of the game. It's in the playoffs, so it's
with this much criticism.
But we'll try and shift gears from this now because I wish and hope that he learns from this and becomes a better player, but. Anyway, we'll move on to other playoff games that happened this weekend. They were all pretty much one-sided.
Let's not put too much word into these.
Okay, I got you. So, first game, god-awful to watch. Felt like every 3 downs you saw a punt. Texans, home for the Raiders. They won 27-14. Not much to take away from this game outside of Texans' defense, and Connor Cook didn't really have a shot in this game, being he only had a week of preparation for a playoff game, but what was your guys' takeaway from the Texans' win?
It was exactly what I thought I would say. They were able to build a little bit of a lead early. Oakland wasn't able to move the ball at all. The rookie quarterback against a good defense on the road. Osweiler was average at best. And they immediately with a lead for the entire second half just sat on the ball. Let's run the ball. 3 now. We don't care. We know they can't score. Just sat on it. It was exactly what I would expect. My takeaway, this game might have been different. This game is definitely closer. Maybe the Raiders went with Derek Carr, but this showed to me. I thought the Raiders were a bit of an overrated team all year, and I was not overly impressed with the Raiders.
I said I wasn't going to watch this game, so I just tuned in.
Did you watch it?
I tuned in the fourth quarter just to see what the score was like, and I saw the stats, and I was like, yeah, pretty terrible quarterback play. They don't want to watch that. So, but yeah, I saw highlights afterwards. Clowney had a big day. Wow, Brock Osweiler finally threw the ball to DeAndre Hopkins. Imagine that. Shouldn't they have done that like during the regular season at some point? But yeah,
garbage.
But honestly, this game, neither of these teams, I don't think were winning their next round matchup anyway. So
I really don't have much to say about this one, to be honest.
I don't think any of us do.
I have invested a couple hours into this game, and I kind of wish I had those hours back to do something else. But anyway, it was a football game. Connor Cook didn't get much prep. He was my X factor. I said they live and die on him, and boy, did they die on him.
His receivers also didn't help him out that much. Crabtree and Cooper dropped passes like they have all year.
I tell you, Amari Cooper drops a lot of passes for a guy that they really talk up and really disappears for stretches.
He's very quiet the second half of the season.
Yes, he was. All right, so that's enough about that game. We will move on to Seattle, home for Detroit. Seattle won a convincingly overwhelming game with a 26-6 score. They got a great, tough competitor right now going to Atlanta. So, what did you guys think of this game?
This surprised me a little. I picked Seattle to win, but I thought it was going to be closer. I think this really showed that, unfortunately, Stafford's finger injury was a big deal, a bigger deal than people made it out to be, and they really couldn't throw the ball with much effectiveness. I guess the best thing for Seattle going forward is that Thomas Rawls had a big game, and but they have it's going to be tough for them in Atlanta next week. So
I thought this was about what I expected. It was a competitive game. It was hard fought the whole way through for the most part. The score ended up being farther than it was. A lot of the game, Detroit was able to hang around within a possession, but I mean, I think it was obvious Detroit lacks a dominating weapon on offense. I think Stafford's finger injury derailed him, but they just don't have a dominating weapon. You know, I talked about Eric Ebron. He just was non-existent. Didn't attack the middle of the field. He was just put the ball on the ground. I mean, their best weapon was Matt Prater. Denver should never let him go. But that was my takeaway. The Lions it was a good season for them. I think it was better than people thought. I think Jim Caldwell held his job. I like to see what I think we're going to get from the Lions next year.
Well, I think this also showed, too, like there was talk during the year where they were like, oh, wow, Stafford's actually better without Calvin Johnson. And I was like, all right, relax a little bit.
We'll see in a big game against the big-time team.
Yeah, well, I think this game showed that the Lions, they just weren't that good. They didn't look like a team who belonged there to me. They had the quarterback, but they didn't have much else going for them. And, you know, you had a lot of good catches, some of them lucky, actually. Richardson.
Face mask on
could have been a face mask, but if you're the ref in that position, are you looking at the face mask there? You're looking at the ball, making sure he catches it, honestly.
It's become such a big thing now, going back after the coaches looked at the film real quick and say, you missed that one, and the refs and the league admits, we missed it. I mean, they're missed all game. You can't get everything.
That's a hard call. You're looking at the ball to make sure he controls it. You're not looking at his offhand, like, tucking his face
you can also relate that to the Cobb non-penalty call, offensive pass interference with the Hail Mary. But also from this game, I had Seattle big in this game. That turned out to be the result. But as you guys alluded to, Detroit didn't have much of a chance, and Stafford was basically a one-man show out there. You're not going to throw to Marvin Jones and Eric Ebron every play, especially against Seattle's secondary in Seattle, and didn't really have much of a running game. But Detroit probably maximized their potential for wins this year, I would say.
Yeah, they have some bright spots on the team, I think. They get Amir Abdullah back in the offseason. I think he's a nice piece. Taylor Decker molded into a good offensive lineman. So they have some good pieces. Darius Slay as well.
Got a young defense, yeah.
Young defense. Ezekiel announced, how do you say his name? Ansah. He's good too. They have some nice players, but they don't have anyone.
They're not going to wow you.
Jumping off the page, to be honest.
I love for them to draft a big-time offensive weapon in the first round.
Speaking of big-time offenses, the Steelers beat down the Miami Dolphins. 30-12 was the score? 30-13, right around that range. So they scored early and often in the first quarter. It was the Brown and Bell show. So what was your guys' takeaway from this game?
The Steelers, they jumped on them. I actually thought they were going to run away with it earlier than they did because they jumped on them early. But I was disappointed with the Miami defense in this game. I thought that I didn't think they were great, but I thought they would come out a little bit more ready to play. I'm not sure what that was on, but I think both of Brown's touchdowns were like over 50 or 60 yards to start. So those are just two big plays, and then Bell just went off as well. I guess the one concern for Pittsburgh is that Roethlisberger got hurt towards the end of the game. It always seems like there's something with him, but so for next week they'll need him. All systems go, I guess.
I was just woefully under impressed with the Dolphins. I mean, they had a nice season. They had a couple maybe favorable wins at the end that pushed them in. I think they really lacked impact players on defense. Big Ben just really picked them apart. I was in a hot name. I was especially because looking at for the Broncos, their defensive coordinator Vance Joseph. It looks so vanilla. Their scheme, that typical. We're playing a great quarterback, so let's rush 3, drop 8. Let's just create a shell, as I say. And you can't do that against a great quarterback. They're going to pick you apart. And Matt Moore was Matt Moore. I don't agree with the notion that he's as good or better than Ryan Tannehill. I think they would have rather had Tannehill out there. And they were a couple of big. They were at times one touchdown away from one score game, but there were a couple of costly Matt Moore fumbles. Mm-hmm. It was what I expected. Pittsburgh took care of business at home.
I think injuries to the Dolphins defense, losing Rashad Jones really early in the season. Also, Byron Maxwell not playing. I mean, he's not the greatest of players, but he would have been better than what they had. I don't think the Dolphins were the best team to make the AFC playoff. I think Denver was better than them. I would have rather seen Tennessee.
Baltimore.
Baltimore also. I think, credit to them getting in there, but I still think that they're not a very good team.
My takeaway from this first round was, especially on the AFC side, there were so many better teams that I felt were watching the playoffs from home. Tennessee, Baltimore, Denver, that were left to watch, while teams like Houston were in, Miami, a quarterbackless Oakland team that just had so many uncompetitive games.
Just how it is now. But with this Pittsburgh-Miami game, I've been pretty critical of Miami all year. I guess everyone got to see it now, but as Paul alluded to, it didn't have much help with key guys being out on defense, plus Tannehill being out probably hurt them as well. But we'll move on to this week's games coming up. The divisional rounds. We'll start with Seattle at Atlanta. What do you guys think?
I'm very intrigued by this game. Atlanta, it seems like no one really talks about them, and they have this high-powered offense and potentially the MVP in Matt Ryan. So I think this will probably be like the best contrast, I guess, between an offense and a defense in this game. So Seattle seems like they're playing their best towards the end of the year now. They're starting to pick it up. Russell Wilson plays better in the playoffs, but Atlanta's offense has been high-powered all year, so I'm interested to see what they could do against that defense.
I'm going to be honest. I'm not the biggest Atlanta fan, but also I agree this isn't one of Seattle's best teams, but last week was as complete a game I've seen from them all year. Thomas Rawls ran the ball well. Wilson was really good. The line played well. If Seattle can play that kind of type of game, I don't know if anybody's going to beat them, at least on the NFC side. I like Seattle in this game. I don't know what the spread is.
4.5.
What is it?
4.5.
We'll get to that.
I like Seattle with confidence. I like Seattle. I think the thing that's going to come down to is I'm never big on the finesse type of offenses. We saw that with the Peyton Manning teams, especially the teams that get that bye. Those finesse timing route teams that never always seem to have trouble getting it started coming off that bye in the first round. And this is also worse, one of those physical defenses that loves to disrupt those type of plays, that offense. I'm worried about Atlanta. Atlanta's had a couple byes before. They haven't come off and played well. I don't love Atlanta's team overall. I like Seattle in this game. I think they're going to play well. I think Seattle is, unfortunately for some of us, we're not the biggest Seattle fans, but they're getting hot.
Very critical of the Dirty Birds.
I am.
I like this Atlanta team. You know what? You got to think Seattle's defense. They've been on the down, but this Atlanta's team has a lot of firepower. Taylor Gabriel, the two-headed monster, Tevin Coleman, Devonta Freeman, Julio Jones. They easily could have won this first matchup against Seattle in Seattle if they got that whole pass interference call. But, Seattle can always get hot at this time of the year. So, and, the way Thomas Rawls was running last game is something for Atlanta to be afraid of. Got to shut him down before anything can happen for them to be able to win, I think.
And I love the quarterbacks in this game. Matt Ryan having an awesome year, MVP caliber. Russell Wilson seems to turn on the playoffs. I'm looking for a high-scoring affair, but it could be the defensive play that changes the entire game. But now we'll move on to the best game this weekend, Houston at the Patriots. Can't wait to watch this slaughterhouse.
It's going to be a great one here. I can't wait.
Yeah.
All right, would this be the biggest upset of all time?
It's up there.
And non-Super Bowl.
This is United States Russia miracle kind of game.
I'm not gonna say that. I don't think it's
Like, how can
A 17-point spread on the road in the playoffs against Tom Brady
But how
and
can
the god
anyone
Bill
in
Belichick.
America, even Bill O'Brien, think that they're going to win this game?
Dude, throw $50 on the game. What the hell?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
how
Like-
can anyone sit there and say Houston will win? Like, you can't believe
No, I
that.
don't think they're gonna win. I don't know. I don't think it's most outrageous probably thing ever. But I mean, if they had a little better quarterback play, I'd say the game could be competitive because they have defense. But the Osweiler's not going to be able to make any plays in this game.
No. Especially with 2 weeks of
And the
preparation.
Texans make a ton of mistakes, and the Patriots will bury an Osweiler-led mistake-filled Texans team on the road.
Didn't they shut them out with Brissett at
Yeah,
quarterback?
they said this
Brissett.
is the time for the Texans to show who they are and go up to New England without Brady. Shut out 27-0 on Monday on Monday night.
Wasn't it Thursday night?
Thursday night, it doesn't matter. They'll lose every week.
Yeah, I guess the only thing they would have to hope for, one of my few bright spots as a Jets fan, when they got killed 45-3 or something to the Pats, then they went up and beat them in the playoffs that same year.
Yeah.
So Houston would need something like that, but I just don't see
What a
that.
great moment in Jets history, eh?
So
gotta celebrate
few.
'em.
Yeah. Sorry.
So few in our
You guys
lifetime.
beat us in the Super Bowl. I can't.
Yeah, so I think it's all but over for Houston. Like, I give them a 2% chance.
I give them -2.
All right.
No
that's fine.
shot.
I don't know. I don't even know where else to go on this game.
Yeah. All right.
How nice of the Patriots to get 2 bye weeks to start the playoffs, though.
The first ever double bye has been done.
All right.
Moving on.
Maybe arguably the best game this week. Pittsburgh at Kansas City. Mike, what do you think?
I like Kansas City's good, but I just don't like watching them. They're kind of boring, but I think it'll be a good game. Pittsburgh, I'm a little concerned with Ben, and that Kansas City pass rush getting around them. I
How else were you thinking, Mike? How else were you thinking here? Let's hear it.
I think Kansas City at home will win.
You know what, Mike? I like Kansas City. I'll tell you that much. 'Cause
Greg,
you know
do you
what?
like Kansas City?
No, but I want Kansas City. When will next year be here? Because I want them. Week 1 on the road.
Anyway, I like them because they have a good defense. They have a lot of players around the ball. Eric Berry, Marcus Peters, those guys make plays. I think they can shut down Le'Veon Bell. Will they? I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Well, I cannot stand Pittsburgh. I think they're one of the franchises most people, if you don't like, if you're an AFC fan, I hope Pittsburgh rolls Kansas City. I think. Listen, I'm not gonna say Kansas City is not a good team. They're a really good defense. Travis Kelce's a really good player. I don't love outside of him. I don't think they have many other weapons. I think if you stop those quick slants across the middle, they love those 3-step ball out of Alex Smith's hands right over the middle. They love all those lateral plays when they get blockers out there, throw laterally to Kelsey or Tyreek Hill, and they run the ball. I mean, that's what it is. If Alex Smith is holding the ball, you've got a really good chance. They love to get the ball out. I don't. It's so boring to me. I just don't know why it's so hard to defend. It's all middle of the field and sideline. You know where the ball is going every play. You just do because they don't take chances, and you know how Andy Reid runs that team. And I cannot stand Kansas City, so Pittsburgh, just do your thing. Just for once, just win when I want a team. Every time I root for a team that I hate, I go, okay, for once, can you do this for me? They never do. But that's how I feel in this game. It's a great game. It's probably my favorite game of the weekend. Just 2 teams I can't stand.
Well, as Greg alluded to, Kansas City, they just know how to win games one way or another, even if it's not in the sexiest way. But Pittsburgh, kind of the opposite. They'll come out, punch you in the mouth with Bell, and then they'll hit you with Antonio Brown for a 50-yard bomb. But I'm looking for a very interesting game. Going to be Kansas City's defense trying to hold Big Ben, Bell, and Brown, and then just Kansas City not wowing you with Spencer Ware, but maybe Tyreek Hill can break open this game as well. But final game for this weekend, Green Bay at the Dallas Cowboys.
Ooh.
Go ahead, Mike.
This one, I think this is the one I'm most looking forward to, just because Rodgers is playing so well, and the Dallas has been the best team in the NFC all year. I think this is going to come down to how much Elliott and Dallas can keep Rodgers off the field. So yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to.
I'm gonna go with Dallas because they're the best team all year. They have been. They're the 1 seed. It's not fair to not go with Dallas. I mean, could Dallas have gotten a harder second round matchup against arguably the best quarterback in the league? He's playing as well as he's played all year. I mean, they're hot right now. I mean, I don't know who's stopping them. I mean, the only thing they don't really do is run the ball. Although Dallas is going to be fully healthy, they're going to have Byron Jones, Scandrick, Claiborne, Carr, Tyrone Smith will be back. Barry Church will be back there. They're going to have defensive line reinforcements.
Tony Romo.
He'll be there. He's going to be a great mentoring presence on the sideline for Dak's first playoff game. I don't know. I can see this going either way. Either way, I'll give this a 51-49 edge to Dallas. I'll probably pull. I like Dallas. I just don't like Jerry. I'll pull for Dallas in this one.
I'll tell you what. I like the Cowboys going into the playoffs. I picked them to go to the Super Bowl, but I got to be honest. You got to be worried as a Cowboys fan with Green Bay coming in. I would want no part of Aaron Rodgers right now. If the Giants were coming in, even though they lost 2 games, I would have picked the Cowboys still, the good amount of confidence. But this game, man, I really do not pick the Cowboys with a lot of confidence. I'm probably going to go with Green Bay just because I can't see the Cowboys defense stopping Aaron Rodgers in this game.
He's a bad man. Bad man.
Well, as you guys have been saying, Aaron Rodgers, he's phenomenal right now.
AJ Styles.
Yeah.
That's true. No,
Wearing the shirt.
No, Undertaker's going to kick his ass. But Aaron Rodgers coming into Dallas, slinging the ball like no other right now. I'm very worried on the Dallas defensive standpoint, but Dallas, I would assume, is going to want to control the clock with Ezekiel Elliott and Prescott. But let's get your guys' picks for this week with the point spread. Also, your X factor for the game. I'll come around the other way. Paul, nice. Seattle at Atlanta. Atlanta's given 4.5. Who do you got, and who is your X factor for this football game?
Well, Mark, very good question that you asked there.
Thank you.
I'm going to take Atlanta in this game. I think the home field is going to be a big-time factor. They're going to feed off the crowd. I think they cover the spread, too. And my X factor for the game, one of the underrated rookies of the year, Deion Jones out of LSU. I think he's a very nice player. He makes plays at the linebacker position, and they need someone who's going to go in the box and really help out in the run game and shutting down Thomas Rawls, which will be the key to the game. And if they do that, they will win by at least a touchdown.
Nice.
Spread again, Mark?
Atlanta's given 4.5.
Taking Seattle. I like Seattle in this game. I'm going to go, listen, it's a boring X factor for some people. I'm not high on him. I've never have been, and he's never really done much in the playoffs. Matt Ryan, can you win a big-time game here? Get yourself into the championship game. You're at home. You're favored. Your only other career win is in the divisional round at home against the Seahawks. Matt Ryan, follow up your MVP season with a great performance. Let's see what you got.
I like Atlanta to win and cover that spread as well. I haven't been as high on them during the year, but I think with them having a week off and that offense at home is a big factor. And my X factor would be Vic Beasley. This guy, nobody talks about this guy. He's one of the best pass rushers in the league, and we don't hear about them. I think he's going to have to be disruptive against Wilson, and I think he will be.
All right, and for my pick, I will also take Atlanta, given 4.5. So Greg is the lone wolf over there.
So you're all on Atlanta.
Exactly. But I like Atlanta in this game, in an offensive game. But I think, as my X factors, I'm going to choose both Tevin Coleman and Devontae Freeman.
You go to double dip for the second week in a row.
Yes, I am.
I thought we could only pick one X factor, Mark.
Sorry, well, if you bank on it like I do with Merciless and Jadeveon Clowney,
right.
Yeah, but it's hard to pick who's going to be better because sometimes they go with the hot hand, and Coleman's very good out of the backfield. But I took Thomas Rawls last week as my X factor against Seattle. I'm also going to stick with the running backs here, taking Coleman and Devontae Freeman. I like Atlanta to win and cover that spread at home. Now moving to Houston at New England. Terrible game.
This will be a quick one.
Who's your guys' winner and X factor?
Should we even do an X factor?
Yeah,
I'll throw it in there.
Screw it.
There is no X factor
All right.
in Houston. So that's going to help them win.
All right, Greg, I'll start with you. Houston at New England. Right now, New England is given 15.5. I'm shocked it's that low.
I'll take New England, cover the spread, no doubt about that. Pick that as my lock. I'll go with the Houston X Factor because I can't really pick anybody that's on the Pats because they're going to dominate. I'll pick DeAndre Hopkins. I don't know, maybe he rips up the Pats for 250 and 4 touchdowns. They got a chance. That's if Osweiler can get him the ball. Now that's it for me. Move on here.
All right. Let's make this one quick. Come on, Mike. What do you got?
New England and my X Factor, just have nobody get hurt. That's my X Factor.
Nice. I like that. All right. I'm picking New England in this game. And my X Factor will be Shane Leckler because he's going to be punting all night.
That's about as that so.
I get that boot right.
All right, and you're all on New England. I will be as well. And for my X Factor, really not much to choose from. I'm going to take Deion Lewis. Get him the ball, get him ready for the AFC Championship game, and give him a little momentum. Alrighty, now for the Sunday slates, we got Pittsburgh at Kansas City. Kansas City given 1.5. What do you think, Mike?
I like Kansas City at home. Pittsburgh won big earlier in the year in this matchup, but it's a totally different season now. So I think Kansas City at home with a week off, with Ben shaken up a little bit. I like Kansas City to win. And my X Factor for them, he should be their X Factor every single week. Tyreek Hill, the guy just makes plays every week.
Damn, Mike, you took.
He'll make a couple, and Kansas City will win.
It's like Pittsburgh. I like Pittsburgh in this game. I think they're going to be too much offense for Kansas City, too much for their defense, and I think Pittsburgh's defense will make just enough plays. I'm going to go with Pittsburgh's hard-hitting safety, Mike Mitchell, patrol in the middle of the field. I think he's going to have to make a couple big hits. I think if he puts his shoulder into Tyreek Hill on a couple of big ones, I think he'll be less, little more concerned about going over the middle in this game, and I think he has to do a good job on Travis Kelce.
Paul?
Well, Mark, you know what? I think the Steelers team is going to get bounced by the Chiefs. I think the defense is going to be too much for them. Justin Houston will be my X Factor. You know, he's been hurt most of the season, but boy, when he's after the pass rusher, he can really change a game. And I don't think any one of the Steelers tackles are going to lay a finger on him in this game.
Interesting choice there. I am going to take Pittsburgh, so we will have a 2-2 split on the choices. I think Pittsburgh goes into Kansas City angry, wanting to get to that AFC Championship game again. And for my X Factor, I'm going to take another running back, Le'Veon Bell. He gets 30 touches. I'm going to be pretty confident that Pittsburgh has won this game and advances to the championship game. And for the final game, we have Green Bay at Dallas. Dallas is given 4.5 points. Mike, what do you think?
I like Green Bay. Rodgers is the hottest quarterback in the league right now. This time of year, momentum matters. The hottest quarterback matters. So I'll take Green Bay to win. And my X Factor is Devontae Adams. With Jordy Nelson being kind of shaken up, he'll probably play, but not really sure what his role will be. I think Adams will have to have a big game for Green Bay.
I'm torn. You should never pick against the best quarterback, but I'll go with Dallas. I think Elliott's going to need a big day. He's going to have to rip it up on the ground. I think Prescott will have to play well enough. We'll see if that winning formula for Dallas will appear again. My X Factor will be, let's go with Ezekiel Elliott. I think they need at least 130 from him on the ground.
All right. This hurts me because I really want the Cowboys to win, but I'm going to go with Green Bay. Wow. Unfortunately, I just think Aaron Rodgers is the hottest quarterback in the league. They have a lot of momentum going into this game, and you see these wild cards teams, once they build up a lot of momentum, they get the win in the first round. It just smells like a recipe for a Super Bowl team to me. And my X Factor for the game will be Ty Montgomery. I think he's a very versatile back. With Jordy out, I think we're going to see him also catching passes, which he did in the game against the Giants. And I think he's going to play a very versatile role in this victory.
Interesting choice there. I am going to take Green Bay to cover the spread, but I have Dallas winning the game. I think this game is going to be one in the trenches between Green Bay's offensive line and Dallas' defensive line. They got to try and get some pressure on Aaron Rodgers, make him feel a little uncomfortable, but not many stars on that Dallas defense. But I'm going to take Sean Lee as the X Factor for this game. He's going to have to try and do everything he can to try and keep Rodgers and that Packer offense outside of the end zone as much as they can. And for our next segment, we have a special guest that has now entered the studio here on 50 Orchard Street. Stephen Chupcavich, one of our good friends.
Don't give away my address.
You said in the first podcast.
I know, I'm just joking.
Oh, oy vey. Steve, how you be?
I'm good. How you guys doing? Thanks for having me. Glad to be a part of the show.
So everyone on the show has introduced ourselves. So Steve, introduce yourself to everybody.
Most people call me Steve. You guys can call me Chup if you guys want.
All right. Is that it?
What do you do, Steve?
I work construction for a living.
He's handyman.
A little bit, you could say that.
Atlanta Falcons fan. He missed the Falcons segment.
Yeah, I was a little late. Sorry, guys.
You could have really went off on Greg here, but that's besides the point.
I'll go on later.
All right, so last night there was a game for the ages in the NCAA football championship game with Alabama losing to the Clemson Tigers with 1 second left. Boy, what a game. Deshaun Watson, biggest game of his career, once again in the championship game, delivered. Riding out in the sunset now, leaving Clemson and entering the NFL draft. Guys, what'd you think of this game?
Really a great game for the ages. And, you could say whatever you want about Deshaun Watson's prospect going into the draft or whatnot, best quarterbacks, but he is an absolute gamer. I think he came to play 2 years in a row against the most NFL defense that you can possibly find in college football. And he shined on the biggest stage. Kind of similar. This game ended kind of similar to Florida State Auburn with Jameis Winston throwing the touchdown in the end zone to Kelvin Benjamin to me. But really, really solid game. And, everyone penciled in Alabama before the season even started as the champion. And, I'm pretty glad to see them lose. I mean, I do not like Alabama by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah, I'm not a big... I'm just tired of watching Alabama just bully everybody. In the first half of this game, I mean, they were just pushing Clemson around. Alabama was just running right through them. I mean, Bo was killing them on the ground. They were laying some big hits on Mike Williams, Deshaun Watson. It looked like a typical Alabama game. And then, you know what? I'm shocked. Shocking second half. I mean, Alabama gave up a 14-point lead in the fourth. Saban, his first career championship loss. And this was as good an Alabama defense as I've seen. I was impressed by Watson. I don't know how great of a pro quarterback he's going to be, but I'll tell you what, you can't teach hanging in there. The hits he took all game and to be ready to lead in the fourth quarter, all that pressure, I was impressed. I'm good for Clemson.
Yeah, I guess Watson back-to-back years now, he's done very well against that Alabama defense. And it was just surprising with the lead at half. You think that's all wrapped up with their defense and with Saban, but Clemson, they hung in there, and this was the rematch that people wanted to see. Watson, like I said, he played well like he did last year, and it was just that you never really see Alabama kind of drop a game like that. But I do think it's good. You don't want to see the same team winning over and over. So I was happy that Clemson won.
Watching this game for majority of the time in the first half was very, very slow. I couldn't get into it at all, and Alabama just looked like they were the better team on defense, on offense, on everything. And then the second half comes around and Clemson turns the ball over, and you're kind of like, this is it. This is where Alabama's going to run away with it. And you got to give those kids credit because they showed a lot of heart on the field. They just would not go away. And Deshaun Watson, like you guys said, what a leader he is. And you got to feel happy for all the kids that were in this national championship game last year and who got this win because you can see how much it meant.
Oh, Steve, speaking like you've done this before, good job.
That's what I do.
But as most people in this room, I'm glad that Alabama is dethroned once again. But all year, we've been waiting to see a big-time quarterback go against that defense, and Deshaun Watson delivered in his last game, so I'm happy for him, and I would assume most of America is as well. But any takeaways from this game outside of Deshaun Watson maybe entering the draft? Maybe if they had Scarborough the whole game, would it be a different final result?
I think you could make the case for that because they lost the ability to run the ball as well. Couldn't really control the clock as well as what. But, the defense definitely didn't perform to the level that Alabama's used to seeing, I'd say.
Big win for Dabo Swinney. He's struggled in a lot of the bowl games, under fire. He gave up, what was it, that one year, like 77 to West Virginia. He didn't have a big resume win. They've stuck with him. He was an interim there, taking over. For Dabo, big win for him.
Yeah, I think Clemson's one of these programs that are always ranked pretty high, but you never really expect them to win the whole thing, and they finally did it. So I just think for that program as a whole, it was a big deal.
Yeah, the defense for Alabama was, very, very, very good in the first half, and then the second half, to even begin the second half, they looked very good. But going on late into the second half, you kind of saw us slipping away. Maybe they got too comfortable. I don't know what it was, but Clemson really capitalized when they needed to.
Now, one takeaway that I noticed from this game, especially down the stretch in the fourth quarter, Mike Williams is going to be, I think, a fantastic pro receiver. What do you guys think? He came up with some huge NFL catches.
Right here, it could be the heir apparent to Calvin in Detroit.
And he could take a hit.
Yeah. We saw that. And he's got great hands, great awareness, especially when the ball's coming his way.
I think he's going to fare well next to, getting compared to Watkins and Hopkins, who also went to Clemson as well.
What do you guys think? Is this guy a top 10 pick?
I think he might have solidified it with that game. We'll see the combine numbers and everything. And
he'll be the first receiver off the board.
You see now that game right there, that championship game, that rose his stock tremendously. Would you agree?
Yes.
I think he was locked in for the first round, probably, maybe back.
Yeah, but that game right there. Now, can you go on the other side and say, like McCaffrey and Fournette, you guys had the opportunity to showcase your talents in the biggest game of your life, and with that being said, you're also probably going to look back on this 20, 30 years from now and say, God, I wish I played in that game. Is there a certain way you can kind of go the Mike Williams way? I mean, he was probably never in doubt and never not playing in a championship game, but I commend him for knowing that he's going to be a first-round pick while still playing.
I don't have any problem with it. I think the right move is to sit personally, but I think it's a different situation for them. I think they're basically locked into their positions. McCaffrey wasn't going to be much higher than what he is. Fournette's probably the first back off the board. Him and Cook, middle of the first round. He wasn't going to – he could have some huge bowl game. I don't think he was going to be that much higher. Mike Williams was I think he was a little bit different. He was probably a first-round pick, but a big performance pushed him up. The other two guys I don't think had much to gain draft stock-wise. That's how I look at it.
I think a big reason Mike Williams' stock is going to go up is playing the Alabama defense, which is – you probably can't find a 3-star player on the team. Mm-hmm. So I think the national championship would have changed it for Fournette or McCaffrey.
I agree with that.
I think just playing Alabama just happened to get Mike Williams' stock to go up. Even Ohio State, too. You can say the same thing about them as well.
It's tough to say when you're not in the position that these kids are in, but at the same time, you're going to look back, like you said, Mark, these kids 20 years from now are going to look back and say, look how cool it is to play in a bowl game like that. Look how awesome it is. That moment must be cool. And they really didn't get to enjoy it because they didn't want to take the risk of getting hurt. And I guess that's a risk they had to take. So.
Yeah, I think they would have definitely played if it was like a playoff type game. But really, besides the bigger bowls, these bowl games really don't mean anything to these players. They just make money for the schools and stuff. So who are we to judge them for trying not to play? So
it's a very controversial topic.
And actually, Dabo today said that if college athletes were going to get paid, he would leave his job because he doesn't want that sense of entitlement, which is kind of crazy to say.
It's hard for me to imagine college players getting paid.
Yeah.
I mean, it could happen. It's definitely getting straight around the league.
I don't think it's going to happen because then you got
all
female athletes. What are we going to get paid? Lacrosse, all these other sports.
There's so much more that goes into it that we don't even know.
It's a lot of hurdles, but I just think without pay, they can treat NCAA athletes better. That they can do.
I agree with that.
Yeah, you got to get some give and take. But as we move away from our main focal points for this week's podcast, we will go into our favorite part of the podcast, being the final banter. Paul, start us off here.
All right. Well, I'm a big UFC fan. I've bantered about it maybe the last 2 times. I don't even remember what I said last week. But anyway, big fight coming up March 4th. The UFC is going to give their fans what they want. Khabib Nurmagomedov versus Tony Ferguson, 2 of the best in the division. Khabib hasn't lost a fight in his career, 23-0. Tony Ferguson has won 9 in a row, and this is a collision that fans should get excited about. And also, we're going to get the rematch from Tyron Woodley and Stephen Wonderboy Thompson that ended in the draw last time. It's going to be a really, really solid pay-per-view. We also got Alistair Overeem versus Mark Hunt on the card. So, with Conor out, they just did big numbers with Rousey. They got to still sell fights. I mean, this one coming up February 11th isn't going to be too exciting, UFC 208. But I am very excited for this card. Steve, you might have to pay the $60 right now because I'm going to tell you right now it's going to be a very good pay-per-view.
The NFL continues to make safety its focal point, as is everybody else, especially concussions. We hear about the Thursday games. We hear about Saturday games. We hear about short weeks, the saturated product. But you know what we saw this weekend in Pittsburgh, Miami? Matt Moore takes a huge hit right under the chin, crown of the helmet. He laid motionless on the ground immediately after the hit, claims he didn't lose consciousness. He was on the field for several minutes, immediately ushered to the sidelines, put to the bench. It took them all but 60 seconds to diagnose this play. He missed one play. I just think that that's unacceptable for the NFL right now. It's a bad look. He might have passed the protocol, but that big of a hit, his reaction afterward, and he's right back out there, didn't take him to the locker room. He passed the independent specialist. I don't know where you go from this point because they have independent neurologists. If you're passing these tests, you're allowed to go back in. You may never be able to please people, but I sure was not pleased after this test, and I haven't really been pleased from what I've seen. The NFL continues to be a moneymaker. What's best for the sport? What's best for the business? And that's never going to change, and neither will safety.
I don't know how Skip Bayless is employed, honestly. he makes $5 million a year, which is crazy. He just got this new TV show, and he just says the most ridiculous stuff. Just scrolling through his tweets now. Like the Cavs traded for Kyle Korver, and he tweeted how LeBron gets the most help anyone in NBA history. He says Ben Roethlisberger's overrated, Aaron Rodgers is overrated. Last night during the game, he's saying Clemson has no shot, it's over, and he's just making fun of them and stuff. And the whole year, he's been on the Cowboys and Prescott for MVP and everything. It's just annoying. I understand that he's trolling people and everything, and by complaining about it, that actually helps him more. But it's just frustrating. We're all people we like to talk about sports and stuff, and we're all pretty knowledgeable. And a guy like that could just go on TV and just say whatever he wants and get paid $5 million for it. So I would just say use your platform a little better and just try to calm down a little bit, Skip.
Great job there, Mike. I'm going to talk about a very recent topic, being the New York Knicks as a whole. Man, they are really dropping the ball lately. Derrick Rose just decides to leave the night of a game, doesn't tell anyone where he's going, albeit it's a family situation, but the least you could do is pick up the phone and let your employer know what you're doing and where you're going. If it's an emergency, I'm sure they would understand. And during the game last night, Carmelo Anthony gets tossed out of the game, 2 technicals. He clearly didn't want to be there, being down by about 20 points, and it just shows if he's the leader of that team that he's not leading by example and they're going in the wrong direction, while also potentially severely hurting Anthony Davis in the process when the game is out of reach. But the Knicks have to try and take some kind of accountability, especially at the top with Dolan and Phil Jackson. They're in the mecca of sports right now, in being in Madison Square Garden, and they're wasting Kristaps Porzingis' primetime years right now, and right now he's getting used to losing, and that is not what you want from your potentially starred player. It's unfair to him, and it's unfair to everybody. But with all that being said, we are finished with this week's podcast on League Banter.
Steve, do you have anything to rant about?
I do not. Everything's great in this world.
Hype us up for this Falcons game, man. Let's get something out of it.
You could be the Dirty Bird cheerleader right
What are you looking for?
I'm not looking for anything. I'm just ready to give Seattle the beatdown they deserve. I think back in week 6, it's hard to say that a missed call loses a game, and it's hard to blame these refs because their job is hard. But that was a terrible officiated game in general for both teams, and it's always like that when you go to Seattle. And I'm looking forward to have this home field advantage against them, and losing to them in week 6, I think everybody's going to be ready. I think everybody's going to have that chip on their shoulder, and this is our coming out party. Number 1 offense in the year, only 2 primetime games all year. Everybody's finally going to get to see it. You guys are going to like what you see.
All right.
You sound very confident there, Steve.
Yeah,
I like that.
We might have to bring Steve back on.
Yeah, he could be the sport plug that we need for this podcast.
This also might be the last podcast because you guys go back to school next week.
So do you.
No, I don't. I go the week after.
Wow.
Oh, well, maybe we'll get together again.
Do some
Maybe.
Yeah.
Here.
Hopefully. Well, all right. So thank you for listening if you made it to this part of the podcast. But anyway, we'll see you next time if we have a next time. And goodbye.